Hello and welcome to an exclusive tutorial just for you, a purchaser of my wood texture collection. Now the purpose of today's tutorial is to give you a practical setting in which you can use the brushes. There's a few tips in the video on how you can use them, all in the process of creating this beautiful design here with lots of 3D elements, nice shadow in between all the layers of wood. Now for this design you will need to check out the requirements down below for the canvas size and any of the additional brushes that I've used in today's design, which is the trees and the stag there at the front. You'll also find a link to the palette. So check out the requirements down below for everything you're going to need for today's design. Again, a massive thank you to you for supporting me and purchasing my wood texture brushes. If you didn't already know, I post weekly tutorials over on my YouTube channel. There's a link to all my socials and my channel in the description down below. So with all that said, let's get started. So once you've grabbed all the requirements are in the description down below and you have your canvas ready, we can get started on creating today's design. The first thing we want to go ahead and do is set the background color. So we're actually going to use the empty layer in our layers. If we go to our colors and we check out the palette we've got for today, we have two colors here on the right hand side that are separated from the rest, and these are our background colors. So the first color, the top color, so the middle one out of that column, we're just going to drag and drop that onto the screen. That's going to act as our background. And now we're going to create all the different layers, make our way down before adding texture. So let's go to our layers. Let's create another new layer at the top. Let's then go to our colors and grab this color here. So we're going to work from this color across the selection. So the middle colors here, these are our base colors, and then our highlight tones are down below for the textures. So let's go ahead and grab this color here. So it's the fifth color out of all of these five here. So this darkest tone. We're then going to go to our brush library and you're going to need that Deer set that's in the description down below. I'm going to go ahead and use Deer 2, but feel free to change it up for any other one should you wish. I'm going to use Deer 2. I'm then going to make sure my brush size, which is set to 91%. And we're going to simply go ahead and tap in the middle of the screen or as best we can. We're then going to grab our cursor. And if you make sure snapping is turned on here in the bottom left hand corner, we can drag this into the center and we should eventually get some orange bars both horizontally and vertically to let us know our stag is nice and centered and we have it in the middle of our canvas. So if we then tap on our cursor when we're done, the next step is to then go to our brush library. We're going to scroll down to the default brushes and we're going to go to calligraphy and we're going to use the monoline brush. Now mine is currently set to 12%, so we're going to start just here and we're just going to continue on the land sort of shape that the stag is stood on and just let that run out towards the bottom here. Just a little something like that. And then on the other side we'll just create another part of the mound, so just a little something that runs off like here and then just let that run off into the corner. And then once you've gone edge to edge with your now little lines on either side, you should be able to drag and drop your colour into this gap here. And now you've got your sort of mound that your stag's going to sit on. But now let's go ahead and make sure this is nicely framed. So we're going to go up to our layers and we're going to create a new layer. We're going to go ahead and on this empty layer, simply drag the color in from the top right and fill the entire screen. This is only temporary, so don't worry too much. We're then going to go to our layers and we're going to use this layer here as the one we're going to keep. But for a minute, we're going to swipe it to the left and duplicate it. The top one out of the two, if we tap on it and invert it, what we're going to do is we're going to use this layer here as a sort of guide to cut out of the bottom one. So this top one, which is now turned to blue, grab your cursor, use the uniform option and just scale that down in size and then put it in the center, again using the snapping feature that we saw a second ago. So something a little bit like that, making sure you hit those lines. Yours may be blue this time in the center because of the stag in the background. And I'm going to reduce mine down just a smidge more and then put it back in the center, and I'm going to give you the final dimensions. If I tap on my cursor or node in the top right, the dimensions are 1819 by, of course, 1819. Tap on your cursor when you're done. And we're going to use this shape now to cut away from the darker one on the outside. So all we're going to do is go up to our layers. This blue layer, tap on it, select it, and go to your layers. Go down to the brown square layer that we created. Tap on it and use the option of clear. You'll notice a big cutout in the center. Go up to the blue layer, swipe it to the left and delete it. And now you have your frame around the outside, which we can actually now pinch to the stag layer because it's all on the same layer. And while we're in our layers, let's create a new layer and drag it underneath our main frame at the top. And we're going to start adding in all the depth that makes its way backwards. So we're going to go to our colors and we're going to move across a color. So we're going to move to the fourth color here out of this collection. So the fourth one here. We're then going to go to our brush library. We're going to then use the tree set that's in the description down below, another free set of brushes that are available to you. So we're going to grab the tree set and we're going to scroll up and we're going to use a couple of these ones up here. Now I'm going to use 15 and 17 for this. Now I'm going to tap on 15 first of all, and the brush size I believe is maxed out at 100%. And then we're just going to simply just tap away, just creating a forest in behind. Now we don't want it to go too much higher than this mound, but just a little bit higher. So I'm going to tap here just to create my first tree. It's probably a little bit too high and a little bit too close. So something maybe like that. And then I can use that as a guide to create another tree right on the edge here. And that's my highest point. So you can see it sort of slopes down a little bit like so. From there, I'm then going to go ahead and create another tree somewhat, say here. Just thicken that up a little bit by tapping a few times. You can see I've left a couple of gaps because we're going to fill that in with a different brush in a second. Let's then repeat that on the opposite side. So let's create another brush, sort of stamp up here. That's our first big tree. Just let that run in. And then let's just put a tree that just gets a bit closer to the stag, but not too close. We don't want it to take away from the center point. So a little something like that. Then you can go ahead and go to your brushes. Switch out for any of the tree silhouettes you fancy, but I'm going to go to tree silhouette 17. And then in those gaps, we're just going to fill it in with a little bit more forest. So just creating another tree, little couple of gaps there. I'm going to fill in this gap as well with another tree. You can see I'm tapping a couple of times. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the gaps we've got and do they add anything to the design, because we don't want too many minor gaps. So I'm going to reduce the brush size down to say 40% so I can be nice and accurate. I'm just going to tap away, just filling in a couple of gaps here and there, just so we don't have too many minor gaps. I don't necessarily want this gap here either, so I'm just going to use this quick stamp just to tap away, and at the same time just fill in a little bit more forest, just adding in some extra trees in there. Again over here we've got a couple of gaps, no problem. Let's just use this stamp just to tap away, fill that in, and also then complete that side of our forest. So a little something like this will do the trick, and I'm going to leave that as is. Now the next step is to create the next layer of trees. Now we're going to go to our layers this time and create a new layer. We're going to go ahead and drag that layer underneath those sets of trees we just made. We're then going to go to our brush library. We're then going to go ahead and switch the color out, of course, to the next color, which is this third color here in the middle of this 5. Then go to your brush library, and we're going to scroll this one down until we hit brush tree silhouette 26. Now my brush size is maxed out at the minute. And what you're going to want to do is you're just going to want to tap in the center of the screen somewhat, just to get a gauge for how high it is. Now that's far too low. So I'm going to go ahead and then move this up a little bit more, because we want the sort of trees just to sit a little bit lower than the antlers at the top there. So we're just going to continue to tap away to gauge where that sits. Now height wise, that's pretty good. So I'm going to leave that like that. But then what we're going to do is we're just going to move across a little bit, say to the right hand side, and tap again, and then a little bit more to the left hand side. And we want to just fill this gap in. So we're just going to bounce the pen side to side, making sure we can just see that little stamp drop in, and then fill that forest in like so. You'll end up with that beautiful set of trees in the background. And that is your sort of middle ground. Now I'm just going to very quickly grab my cursor and just move that down a smidge, because I don't want it to touch the ears at all. I want a nice little bit of separation there. So tap on your cursor when you're done. And that's a good little area there for height. Next, we're going to go ahead and create 2 very basic mountains in the background. So go up to your layers, create of course a new layer, and drag it underneath. We're then going to go to our colors and grab the next color, which is the second color in the 5, this one here. We're then going to go to our brush library. We're going to go to calligraphy and the monoline brush, and we're going to create our first little mountain here in the top left hand side. So you want to start outside the canvas and come in, so you may need to just zoom out a little bit and just create your first mountain peak. So let's just run in the pen like so, just creating some beautiful bouncy lines, and let that just run all the way right to the edge of the screen on the right, so that you can then drag and drop your color in. So because we went edge to edge, we can now drag and drop the color in, and then that fills in the whole object. Let's then go to our layers once more and create one more new layer. So create a new layer and drag it underneath that mountain you just made. Then go to your colors and grab the first color in the palette. So this one here. And then we're going to add another mountain here. So again, start outside the canvas a little bit and then just creating a little mountain peak there in the background. Just let that just run all the way to the edge and drag and drop your colour in. And now I'm going to grab my cursor and I'm just going to move that one down just a smidge like so until we hit something like that. Tap on your cursor and that's step one. You've done all of your foundation work to create all your layers with the right color palette. And now we can go ahead and add in the next step, which is going to be texture. So for the texture, it's really fun and I'll explain a little bit of how we can use the brushes. So let's go up to our layers and let's start at the top. Let's start with the main focus. So let's go up to layer 2 here. Let's tap on the layer and alpha lock it. So now we can only paint within the boundaries of the actual shape we've created, which is the frame, the mound and the stag. And then we're going to go up and take a look at our colors. Now I just want to touch on the colors for a minute and also how you can use them in your future work, because you'll notice that the base colors here are the darker tones and that's quite important. The texture that you are going to end up painting on top is typically the lighter variation of it. So if you have a piece of wood, let's say, that has been originally brown, of course, and then painted with white, so the grooves in the actual wood potentially are still brown, you would start with the layer being brown and then paint on with white on the top, which will then give all the grooves within the wood a nice brown color. So you can see here, this layer here that we're working on now, the highlight color for it, or the actual color of the wood we want, is this color here underneath. So we're going to grab this one, the 5th color here, and the bottom in that column. And then I'm going to go to our brush library. We're going to go ahead and grab your brand new wood textures and let's take a look at what we've got. Now in the collection, you'll spot we have 5 different textures. We have a bark texture. We also have 2 wood panels, one vertical, one horizontal. And we've got 2 wood lining. Now the wood lining are just simple lines that represent the grain that you would find in wood. And then we've got the paneling, which then of course is lots of panels with different grain on them that obviously link up into a pattern. And then we've got the wood textures themselves. And the bark is just a much more rough look to the design. So the first one we're going to use is the wood texture 4. Now, before we use this wood texture, I want to give you a quick tip on how you can adjust them in future to fit the style that you need. For example, if we tap on wood texture 4 and then we go to the brush studio, if we go to grain, this is a scale slider. Now I've set this to what I think we need it for today. However, you can scale this up and down and you can see the smaller I make it, the more repetitive the grain is and also the more small the detail will be. But if we scale this up, you can get right into the texture and make really large amount of texture on the screen at one time. So I'm going to drop it down to 20% because that looks pretty good for what we're going to try and do today. But just bear that in mind, if you're painting in a very small area and then you start to add on the texture, but it doesn't fit quite well, you may need to adjust the scale and then it may fit the space a lot more. So if you've got a very small element, you may need to reduce the scale down. If you've got a nice large area, you can then increase the scale up. So just a little note there and a quick tip for today. If we hit done, we're going to use wood texture 4 and of course we've selected the color. Now the brush size is maxed out. The brush size doesn't necessarily make a difference. You're still painting on the same texture regardless if you go down to 20% or you go to 100%. You're still painting in the same thing. It's just how much you add on the screen at one time. So what we're going to do is though, we're going to reduce the brush size down to say, let's go down to about 50%. How big is that? That's good. And we're going to go ahead and give the outside area a nice coat. So going all the way along the frame and then into the mound. Now I want to just leave a little sort of darkness on this edge. So I'm going to press a little bit lighter towards that edge and let the pen just brush out. And then on the back area of the stag, more than anything, just up here, leaving the left side a little bit darker. So I'm just going back over it a couple of times. And the more times you paint, the brighter the texture will be. So you can see if I go up and down that frame a little bit more, we've got some more wood in there. So we're just going to paint in a nice brighter area here on the right hand side of the stag. And then that reveals a lot more of this beautiful, beautiful wood texture. Look how cool that looks. So that's our first texture done. We're going to add texture to all of them before we start to move into the beautiful 3D elements. So let's go to our layers now and go down a layer. And we're going to work on these sets of trees here. So tap on the layer and alpha lock it. Go up to your colors and grab the relevant highlight color, which is the 4th color here and the bottom tone. We're then going to go to our brush library. And we're going to switch this one out now to wood texture 2. Now this one doesn't matter. We can make the brush size about sort of 65% so we can be a bit more accurate with where we drop it. But we're just going to fill in this area here up and down, giving it a nice coat top to bottom. And how nice is that? We've got a beautiful horizontal grain in there, whereas in comparison to the top one where we've got some nice swells and curls in here, we've got a horizontal grain. Look how nice that looks. We're then going to move to the next layer down. So we're going to go to our layers and tap on the next one down, tap on it and alpha lock it. Go up to our colors. We're going to grab the bottom color in the middle. So it's the third color and the bottom color. We're then going to go to our brush library and we're going to go ahead and grab wood texture 1. And then again, we're just going to paint from left to right on top of the layer, adding in again, quite a horizontal grain in this one, but it's a little bit different in comparison to the one we just painted in. Now for a minute, we've not got much depth in between, so don't worry. We're just dropping in all the texture for now. Let's then go to our layers again, go down to the mountain in the back, tap on the layer and alpha lock it. Then I'm going to go to the correct color. So go to your colors and grab the bottom color here in the second column. Then go to your brush library and we're going to go ahead and grab wood texture 5. And again, we're just going to coat that mountain from left to right, giving it the same pressure. Now you can with the brushes, if you continue to repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat, you will of course add more and more of the exact same texture. Just bear in mind, if you decide to rotate your canvas, for example, and then draw on top, you can see now the grain is not only going horizontally, it's going this way as well, diagonally. So we need to undo that because we want to just make sure we keep the grain exactly the same. So just bear that in mind. In case you rotate your canvas, it will adjust how your grain is added. We're then going to move on to the final mountain in the back as well as the background. So go up to your layers and go to the final mountain, tap on it and alpha lock it. Go to your colors and grab the bottom color here in this first column of colors. So this one here. We're going to go to our brush library and we're going to grab wood texture 3. And again, let's give our mountain a nice coat of texture. One coat should do it because this is quite bright in this area. And then let's go to our layers and go down to the background color, which is why we put it on an extra layer. We're then going to go to our colors and the bottom color over here on the right. So this separate column is the one we want. So this one here. We're going to go to our brush library and I'm going to use one of the panels for this one. So I'm going to use wood panel 1. Now then we can go ahead and of course, just work from left to right, painting in that texture in the background, and you'll get this really beautiful grain there. Nice and big with its detail. Look how nice that looks in the back. Now, of course, as I mentioned, we've got some nice textures in here, but we need to add the 3D element to make it look really pristine and really smart and really 3D. So let's start moving into that territory. So let's go to our layers. We're going to go ahead and work at the very top first of all. So we're going to work on the framework. We're going to swipe it to the left and we're going to duplicate it. We're going to tap on the top one and clipping mask it to the one below it. The one below, we're then going to tap on the layer, make sure it's alpha locked, and then you're going to use the option of fill. Now you won't see any visual change. What we're going to do is we're going to zoom out of our canvas. We're going to go to the top layer. We're going to go to our cursor and we're going to tap in this top left hand corner. We're going to tap 5 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then tap on your cursor when you're done. What you'll have done there is we have the original layer that's not moved. We had one that was clipped above and we've moved it 5 pixels up towards that top left hand side, which is now given our stag and the frame and this little mound a little bit of a highlight on the edge there. That then creates that highlighted side. We're going to repeat that throughout the whole rest of the design. So let's go to our layers. We can actually pinch the 2 layers together if we want to save on our layer count. So let's do exactly that. Let's pinch those 2 together because we're done with the highlight. Let's then go down to the trees, swipe the layer to the left and duplicate it. The top one, which you'll be having selected, tap on it and clip it to the one below it. The one below, tap on it and fill it. It should be alpha locked already. Then go up a layer again to the actual brown texture for it. Grab your cursor. Let's zoom out of the canvas a little bit because you need to be able to tap on the empty space on the outside. And rather than 5 times, we're going to do it 4 times. So in this top left hand corner, we're going to tap 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. Tap on your cursor when you're done. And now your trees have this nice crisp highlighted edge on it, which is giving the wood a 3D element. We're then going to go to our layers. We can pinch those 2 together. We're then going to go down to the next set of trees and repeat the same process. Swipe the layer to the left and duplicate it. The top one out of the 2 you have selected, tap on it and clip it to the one below. Tap on the one below, tap on it and fill it with the yellow. Then go to the one above, grab your cursor and tap 3 times this time in the top left. 1, 2, 3. That will then give your trees a nice crisp edge, and tap on your cursor when you're done. Look at that, we've now got nice sharp edges on there. Let's do the same for the mountains, although they might not get too much of an edge to them, we'll still do it just in case. Let's go up to our layers. Let's pinch the 2 layers of the layer 4 that we were just working on and pinch them together. Let's then go to our first mountain, swipe the layer to the left and duplicate it. Tap on the layer and clip it to the one below. Tap on the one below, tap on it and fill it. Go back up to the actual coloured version, grab your cursor and tap twice in the top left. 1, 2. Tap on your cursor when you're done. Now again, you might not see any sort of crisp edges on here, and that's fine. It's just dependent on how you drew yours. Mine, I don't see any, and that's just simply because we're moving it up this way and none of these edges on here are necessarily facing that right hand side. But we'll do it for this one as well, so let's go to our layers. Let's pinch the 2 layer 5s together. And let's go to the other mountain in the back. Swipe the layer to the left and duplicate it. Tap on the layer and clipping mask it. Tap on the bottom one. Tap on it and fill it. Then go back up to the coloured version. Grab your cursor, but we're only going to move it once up to this top left. So just 1 pixel. And tap on your cursor when you're done. Again, it will just add it if you did make space for it, that's all. Let's go and go to our layers and pinch the 2 together. So that is our little highlight stage. The next stage is where it really comes to life, and that's with shadows. So let's go to our layers and go right to the top again on the framework, and let's start adding in some shadows. Let's swipe the layer to the left and duplicate it. The bottom one out the 2. We're going to go up to our colors. We're going to grab this tone here. So it's this color here. It's the 5th color on that top row. It's going to act as our shadow color. We're then going to go back to our layers. And on this layer, we're going to go ahead and tap on it and use the option of fill. You won't see any visual change, but the layer underneath now is filled in with the correct shadow color. Tap on your layer again and turn off the alpha lock so we can blur it. But before we do, let's go to the N and change its layer effect from normal to multiply. Then we're going to grab our adjustments. We're going to grab motion blur. And because our highlight is down here in the bottom right, we're going to go ahead and tap in the center of the screen and drag down towards the bottom right. So we're going to tap and drag, and you'll start to see this sort of little bit of a sort of casted shadow come into place, but we can choose the angle. You can see that there. Now we want to push that shadow up towards the top left hand side. Now for the minute it will be doing it on both sides, but you just need to get the angle right. So a little something like that, and up to about sort of 30% motion blur there at the top, which is the distance you traveled from the center to this point here. And then when you're done, tap on your adjustments. Then go ahead and grab your cursor and move this up to the top left a little bit until the shadow starts to connect to this edge here. So the shadow should only really be on the left hand side of our stag. So the antlers shouldn't have any shadow like here. It needs to be moved up to the top left and just be beyond that left hand side. Tap on your cursor when you're done. What we're then going to do is on this top layer only, we're going to go ahead and go to our layers and swipe it to the left and duplicate it. Then we're going to go to our adjustments, Gaussian blur, and we're going to swipe from left to right until we just add in let's go for something roughly around about 20%. And then tap on your adjustments when you're done. And that is your first shadow at the top. Look how much depth we've added. The frame looks fantastic because you create this level of depth immediately all the way around it. Let's then go ahead and work on the trees in behind, and all these shadows will come to life now, and you'll see all the depth come to life with how much we create from front to back. So let's go to our layers. Let's go down to our next set of trees. Swipe the layer to the left and duplicate it. The bottom one out the 2. Tap on the layer and fill it because we've still got the correct shadow color selected. Tap on the layer and turn off the alpha lock. Then again, tap on the N and change it from normal to multiply. And then go to your adjustments, go to motion blur, and again from the center, drag down towards the bottom right, and you'll see that shadow start to stretch. Now we don't want to go any higher than the previous value. We want to be a couple of percentages lower than the previous one. So the previous one was 30, so we can maybe do say 25. Let's go to about 25 and grab our cursor and then move it again up towards the top right until the peaks of all your shadows are touching the tops of your trees. Tap on your cursor when you're done, and then just like before, we're going to go to our layer, swipe it to the left and duplicate it, and then the top one out of the 2, we're going to go to our adjustments, Gaussian blur, and let's just give this a nice soft blur, roughly around about sort of 15% on this occasion, and then tap on your adjustments when you're done. Look how much depth we've already started to create, and that's just going to get more and more to the back. Let's go to our layers. Let's go down to the next set of trees. So this layer here, swipe it to the left and duplicate it. The bottom one out the two, tap on it and fill it. Tap on it and turn off the alpha lock. And tap on the N and change it from normal to multiply. Again, go to your adjustments, motion blur, from the center of the screen, tap and drag. And then we don't want to be any higher than what we were before, which was 25. So we're going to go down to about 20. Let's go down to about 21 this time. Make sure the angle is still nice and correct, which it is. Grab our cursor and then just move that up to the top right until the tips of our shadows are touching the tips of our tree. So I can see them here as a guide. Tap on my cursor when I'm done. Let's then go to the layer, swipe it to the left and duplicate it. And just like before, go to adjustments, Gaussian blur. And on this occasion, we're going to swipe and we're going to go up to about sort of 10% this time for Gaussian blur. And then tap on your adjustments when you're done. Now, again, lots more depth. We've got 2 more to go. So let's now go ahead and work on the next mountain. So we've got 2 more to go. Let's go down to our layers and go down to the mountain. Swipe the layer to the left and duplicate it. The bottom one out the 2, tap on it and use the option of fill. Tap on it and turn off the alpha lock. Change its layer effect from normal, scroll up to multiply. And then again go to adjustments, motion blur, and from the center again push down towards the bottom right corner. And this time we're going to stick at 20% just so we can still get a nice bit of depth in there. So 20, and then grab your cursor and again just move that up to the top right. And you just want to create a bit more of a casted shadow in the background there. So on this occasion, because we don't have a peak such as a tree, we can't sort of work on the tips, making sure they link up. So you just want to push that up towards the top left until you get a nice little shadow up there like so. And then tap on your cursor when you're done. Then again, go back to your layers, swipe the layer to the left-hand side and duplicate it. And then the top one, go to adjustments, Gaussian blur, and let's blur this one out and let's give it about 10% Gaussian blur there. And tap on your adjustments when you're done. We've got 1 more mountain to do this too, so let's go to that mountain. So let's go to our layers. Let's then go down to the mountain, swipe it to the left and duplicate it. The bottom one out the 2, tap on it and use the option of fill. Tap on it and turn off the alpha lock. And change its layer effect from normal to multiply. Then go to your adjustments, go to motion blur, and push again from the center down towards the bottom right. And on this occasion, we're just going to add a slightly smaller one. So let's go to about sort of 16%. Grab your cursor and just move that up towards the top left a little bit more, just a little bit, something like that. Maybe even I can move it a couple of times by tapping. Tap on my cursor when I'm done. And then again, go to the layer, swipe it to the left and duplicate it. Go to your adjustments, Gaussian blur, and let's add a 10% shadow in here as well. And then tap on your adjustments when you're done. And then if I go ahead and pinch with 2 fingers and go full screen with 4, you end up with today's finished design. So I hope you enjoyed this little look at the brushes, on how to use them in a practical setting, and this beautiful design that we come up with at the end. A massive thank you to you for supporting me and purchasing my brushes, and I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Be sure to share your tutorial design with me if you followed along over on Instagram. There's a link to all my socials in the description down below. And if you didn't already know, I post weekly tutorials on my YouTube channel. There's a link in the description down below if you want to come and show your support. And with all that said, I'll see you in the next one.